We are now broadcasting. We are now
Well, it
live
says
streaming.
live up there.
Dodging the. We are now dodging the question.
I quit. I'm out. I did not agree to this whole live broadcasting thing.
It's that time of week again. It's time for PHPUgly.
It is Thursday night.
Almost.
It's late
Almost.
Thursday night, and this is not going to be good.
I think we finally got live streaming working, and my makeup is all just in shambles.
Yeah. Seriously, the bags under your eyes need some work.
Look, everybody can see Yaz now.
There's a puppy.
It's a doggy.
The most
Look at
important
him.
member of the podcast.
No, Thomas is the most important member. He's the one we named it after. Boom.
Oh, jeez. Hey, I'm the one who's showing up to meetups now. You guys are just flaking on me left and right.
We were both there last night. What
Yeah,
are you talking about?
are you gonna be at the next one?
No, I'm not. For
No.
sure.
For sure not.
I'm for
He
sure
says
not.
without giving context to our listeners.
Nobody cares about me having another kid.
You could have ended that sentence.
I was
quite a
saying you're
bit.
going to stop it. Nobody cares about you.
Yeah,
That too. Nobody cares.
that's not true. All the people who care about you are in this channel right now.
That's right.
What have you guys been up to this week?
I'm happy to be back in San Diego. It was hot in Arizona. I mean, it got up to 120 by the time I left. I could not wait to get out of that place. I don't know how people live out there. It's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
I know.
Homes
I
usually.
played Ultimate in 108, and that was crazy enough. I can't imagine 120.
Well, I got to be honest with you. I think after 110, it doesn't even matter anymore. There's not that much difference between 110 and 120. It's just so stinking hot. You're melting
Yeah.
at that point. It doesn't really matter.
It got to about 85 here, and that was just intolerable.
The joys of living close to the coast.
Yeah, yeah. I almost for a second couldn't smell the beach. It was disturbing.
I remember living on the beach. Best time of my life.
I remember having money.
Well, yes, you don't get both, I guess.
No, you have to pick one.
Well, somehow
So
I
what
picked
kind-
inland, and I'm still out of money. What are you talking about?
What's everybody been up to? Anything fun?
No, I mean, this has been an incredibly quiet week for PHP.
It
Been
has
a
been.
pretty quiet week in general, just for tech in general, I think.
Actually, I have some just before we started recording. I finished up a little, not finished a project, but finished a feature on a project using a closure table.
Ah, playing with the closure tables.
I
We
am.
we were discussing this earlier. So can you explain what's going on
No,
with this? I don't know what this is at all.
not very well. I can try to. So I actually now have two projects where a closure table is implemented. The original one, I think they overused this design pattern, for lack of a better word. They used it with a folder structure, and it works every time I've gone into that code because I didn't know what it was called at the time, and I was very confused. I hated it. And now that I know the terminology of a closure table, I've been able to do a little more research, and it makes sense. And basically, it allows you to take a tree of data and then move nodes around within it. So the person that implemented it on the previous project, they looked at a top-level folder as a root node and then subfolders being beneath it. And it works, so then you could easily move a subfolder up to a parent folder. The queries are super fast because you can then say, I need every folder that is under this folder. So it has merit, but I still think it's overkill in a folder structure type of scenario.
So I know you touched on it, but can you just one more time just kind of explain the purpose of a closure table? What is its intention?
So It's just a way of having a nested set of data.
Nested set of data. There you go. Okay.
And I think the project we're working on now, it's getting a little hairy because it's not all of one type of data. So in the folder example, every entity is a folder in that table. In the current project, again, I just did it literally minutes ago. It's using 4 different types of data, and I'm not exactly sure how it's all going to play out in the end. So I look forward to reporting on that in the near future.
That's one of the great things about it being a developer, right? I mean, you get something up and working, and then you start iterating from there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that and you get excited about dumb stuff.
Yeah.
Which it's good for me because I'm generally a very boring person. So if it weren't for the dumb stuff that excited me, I'd live a very dull life.
Well, what's been exciting you lately?
Well, just we had a meetup yesterday, and we were discussing a project that we're all working on, and I sort of realized that I had a big chunk of work to do. It was all one logical ball that I could wrap my head around, and I could sit doing for 4 hours. So I got very excited about having a chunk of work, something solid. One of my least favorite things is when I have a ticket that says, "Yeah, we need to change the header text on 20 pages." Like, oh, that's a wonderful use of my time. That is, I'll spend 8 hours editing one line at a time on 20 files. That's just awful.
That takes you 8 hours to do?
Well, if I hate doing it, yeah.
Note to self.
You referenced our meetup yesterday. We had our Laravel meetup, and Thomas, you were one of the presenters.
We had 2 presentations. One was really good. The other was eh.
They were both very good.
Yeah. We'll let you know which one was at the end of the podcast.
Spencer, don't you listen to them, Spencer. If you're listening to this podcast,
I was talking about Thomas personally, but
oh,
yeah, mine was.
See, that's why we have to stream. Did you see that expression? Now people watching the stream get to see that.
We didn't tweet out the stream.
They're not gonna want to see
It'll be on our YouTube channel. Bastard.
I did not agree to this.
Anyways, Thomas, I don't know if we shared it with you yesterday, but your presentation was very timely. It turns out that what you presented on, which was creating a service provider in Laravel, hit home with one of the developers there on a project that she's working on for Diego Dev, and she's going to be writing a service provider for a search functionality that she was struggling with getting her head around how she wanted to tackle it. And after she saw your presentation, she's like, "There, that's it. That's perfect. That's how it should be done." So
excellent. Yeah, one of the key focuses of that presentation was that this presentation was only a half hour long, and writing the presentation took me an hour. But the code itself is a 2-minute task. Creating a service provider sort of skeleton is really, really fast, and it saves you so much headache and time.
That's what I Laravel. That's one thing I liked about your presentation was you even said, write it once, it's going to take you a while. Write it a second time, it's going to be a lot faster, and by the third time, super simple. And you're going to do it all the time.
Incredibly easy.
So why don't we just take a second and, this is a podcast about PHP, and we do talk a lot about Laravel. Why don't you explain to us what a service provider is and when it be used and how you go about creating one?
One might call it the world's oldest profession.
No, they wouldn't.
No.
I don't know who you hang around, but that's not what they're.
Sure, glad we're streaming this. In Laravel, you have a bootstrapping process which allows you to register classes into the IOC. And when those classes are registered, they're either called dynamically or they're loaded in the bootstrap process. So creating a service provider basically lets you write an object that you can insert into the IOC, which can be, called back at any time, somewhere else in the code. And creating the facade sort of sticks with some of the older Laravel patterns, and then, it lets you write a class that you can call all over the place, either as a singleton or as a bound class. And it also really helps with abstraction. Service providers will bind your service to a contract, and so when you need to access your service, you call it by the contract's name. Laravel resolves the contract to the specific instance, and that lets you execute. But if you need to do a mock, then you can bind it based off of the environment. So in your testing environment, you would bind it to a mock object, which would provide mocked results.
I think I know the answer to this next question, but I'm going to go ahead and ask it anyways.
About 6 inches.
What is the difference between a service provider and my personal favorite, the repository pattern? When would you create a service as opposed to a repository?
Well, repository is a database abstraction technique. So when you're accessing your data, you're saying you're using something like Redis, MySQL. You've got NoSQL solutions. So really, the repository pattern is a different type of contract for managing data versus processing data, or something like that.
No, that was perfect, actually. That's exactly, I think, a good way of putting it, yeah.
Hey, you're putting me on the spot. I gotta defend my honor by saying I'm probably wrong.
No, I thought that was a softball.
No, I know, but whenever I'm asked to be an authority on the matter, I always end a sentence with maybe.
Possibly. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'll talk for an hour on something and say, maybe. I don't know. What do you think?
No, I think you nailed it there. That was perfect. And
I might have.
We're not sure. Hence the maybe at the end of the sentence.
Yeah, we'll find out in the comment section.
You can't hold me to anything because I didn't say for sure.
So
that's my final answer.
The second topic we had, or the second presentation we had, was equally interesting, and it was.
Oh no, we lost Eric.
We did lose Eric. Nope, there he is. Oh,
we got a frame.
He's there. What's he doing?
Looks like he's drinking beer.
About?
Oh, there you are.
Your video.
I'm here this whole time.
Your video is like 1 frame a minute.
Yeah. Anyway, I guess we should continue. We will continue. So the.
I was wondering how long I could hold it.
Maybe.
Oh, so now he's really just messing with us. Gotcha.
He's got a bandwidth slider that just changes his connection quality to screw with us.
Oh my god. Okay, so the second presentation we had actually interested me because it built on a presentation I did prior. Spencer, who, God bless him, I've been trying to get him to do an SDPHP presentation now for years, since I met the guy. Always refuses. Thomas says, hey, do you want to present at Laravel? And he says, sure, I'll do it. Bastard.
See, anyway. It's not in what you ask, it's in how you ask it. Because I asked him, what is he presenting for the next meetup?
How do you think I'd ask him all the time? Same thing.
Yeah, just a little more slurred. Hey, Spencer, what are you doing later?
Never. I'm allergic to alcohol. I don't drink. Not one drop.
If you were allergic to alcohol, we'd have to call the hospital right now.
Anyway, so he did a presentation on doing authentication in a legacy app via Laravel, and it built on a presentation I gave a couple months back, how to wrap your legacy app in Laravel. We have lots of code out there. It's not good. It's antiquated, legacy, and
just say WordPress.
No.
That is one aspect of it, but there are other legacy code bases out there, and we've actually used this technique of wrapping Laravel around an application. And authentication is a little more difficult to wrap into there. And I didn't cover that in my presentation. So he took it upon himself to make his presentation, extend what I did, and then wrap it around that. But because it was client code that we can't share, he needed to find another example piece of code, and he happened to use WordPress. We're sitting.
Oh, I see.
Which kind of derailed the presentation a little bit because people started asking questions specific around WordPress.
And Spencer's like, really, no, it's just an example. I didn't really. I'm not expecting you to do this, but it's possible.
Matter of fact, don't ever do this. This is a bad idea.
So I found it fascinating. I thought he did a great job. I told him before the meetup that I was going to heckle him the entire time because he didn't present for SDPHP first. But the way he presented was fantastic, and I couldn't interrupt him.
He's such a good speaker. I mean, he's just a naturally good talker, and he can keep talking and talking. You'll listen to him until you have to go to the bathroom or something. But he's a great talker, I tell you.
Yeah. So I enjoyed it.
Just can't stop looking at his beautiful mouth.
Whoa.
That went really bad real quick.
He gets that from the type of work he does on a normal basis.
Yeah, quality.
Quality? You do quality work on a normal basis?
Yeah. For you guys. You haven't noticed?
Last time I checked, we were not in the adult industry.
Oh, now you're just dragging cards around all over the place.
That's what I do.
I don't even see where that card went. Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a horrible transition. I thought you took the beautiful.
That is a whole prepared thing. I have a whole lecture to give about development in the adult industry.
Well, start giving it because we did the.
Are you coming out of the closet, Thomas? Are you letting the world know that you work in porn?
I've never kept it secret. I just don't. You usually come out with it immediately and say, yeah, of course, what do you do for a living? Oh, I make porn websites. No, I work on CMSs.
Your boss said that.
Fair enough.
Your boss showed up to a meetup once and started handing out business cards. I was like, oh, okay.
He's a little bit more gregarious than I am.
You gotta stop using big words, man. Gregarious.
I'm sorry.
I mean, gregarious.
Sorry.
You added this topic. What do you want to talk about?
I didn't. I added this topic to the ideas list, not the next show list.
Who added it to the next show list?
How did it end up in discussion?
I don't know.
We can cut all this out.
No, that's fine. No,
Thomas did it yesterday at 6:12 p.m. I love audit logs.
Oh no.
He's right. I'm totally looking at it.
Oh jeez. Oh god. What did I do?
Call with your pants down and expand.
That's how it works. Yes. Yeah.
Right,
I want to do.
For the record,
I want it.
Hold on. Let's address the elephant in the room. The PHP elephant in the room here. So, for the record, the adult industry has a long track record of being leaders in technology, right?
For sure.
I mean,
I would say you're welcome for having the internet.
Oh, the internet?
Yeah.
They decided the VHS beta debate. They decided the DVD, Blu-ray HD DVD debate. I mean, that industry alone has set the tone for just about every sort of media that we consume today. If the porn industry adopts it, that's what everybody goes to. I mean, there's just no debate in it.
Well, and it's because we're working with we're working with the most people. We've got the highest website loads. We've got the most users. You know, the adult industry is the extreme end of web development, and you're dealing with money, people, emails, content, mobile devices versus desktop devices. I mean, we have to,
Security,
yeah,
lots of security.
yeah, security. We have what you would consider to be the toughest job outside of, I guess, banking on the internet for security-oriented stuff. It's there's everything is in there. Where if you're going to work for an adult website as a lead developer, you're going to have a pretty good understanding of all of the web technologies that are out there. And yeah, I've seen it all. I really have. I've seen software developed in Russia that had backdoors built into it that have run on systems for a long time. Um,
And you have the luxury of working for one of the more reputable adult content providers out there. I mean,
I
they're.
do, yeah, I do now.
Mhm.
I've worked for a sort of less than reputable place, and that was definitely a reason for leaving that place. Uh, Having to deal with sending out millions of emails and things like that, and there are tricks in the adult industry that all of the online, anything you pay for online uses. Uh, it's just sort of we're on the more cutting edge of things that are maybe questionable. I don't know. But yeah, I work for what I would consider one of the more reputable companies, and I'm glad to have that position now as opposed to some of my previous positions. And one of the things is that when you're hiring people to work for you at an adult company, it's really nice to hear that they've already worked in the adult industry, because you know that there isn't going to be a problem with someone who just can't deal with the sort of saturation of the material that there is.
Mhm.
Um, and you sort of think, hey, yeah, if someone knows they're going into a job at an adult company, they're going to see a lot of adult material. But we've had people who left after the first day.
Mhm.
Programmers came in, and then I've had a couple guys who said, yeah, yeah, no problem, whatever, and then just didn't come back for day two. And you sort of go, well, that's all right.
But
That would be something to know about yourself.
yeah, but also at the same time, while you do see it, we've also had lots of conversations where, as a developer, you don't have to see it on a daily basis.
Oh no, not at
In,
all.
in development, you're not looking at necessarily porn. You could be looking at other pictures
It,
Yeah, I
because
have
it
I
doesn't
have
matter.
seeded I have seeded data that's all stock images of cats,
Hmm.
and you know, it, if you were to look at me working, you would just think I work for a cat website. You
Yeah,
wouldn't have any idea what the
we've co-worked numerous times and it hasn't been an issue. It's not like
yeah.
you have to be hiding.
There are situations where there's
he
a
does
problem
code with
on.
that trench coat on, though. It's so weird. It's like, really, the
Yeah, but
trench coat?
that's just a reference to the Matrix. I don't really have anything to do with the adult industry for that. Didn't I tell you guys I am the one?
Yeah. You just don't want to know which one you are.
Yeah, and
I interrupted you. You had a good flow going. Keep
when I'm
going.
sitting when I'm parking myself down, to work out of Starbucks or whatever, I do make sure that I'm facing a wall and not a table full of children. you know, because I'll get links from my boss and say, hey, we've got an error on this page. Can you take a look at it? And after all this time working, I sort of just go, oh yeah, sure, whatever, and pull it up, and then see what the problem is, and then you pull up a link and go, whoa, all right, that's not safe for Starbucks. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of issues, but really, it's it's never been a problem. It's just that things are difficult because it's such a heavily used website.
So, so you added this card to Trello. Was there something specific you wanted to mention, or is it just
You
the,
already know
the
that I
pros and
don't
cons?
remember adding the card to Trello.
You just moved it last night.
Do you remember what you were doing last night at that time?
At 6 o'clock, yes, I was feeding my kid. Actually, no, I was at a meetup last night.
Yeah, yeah,
I was not feeding my kid at all.
exactly. No, you were sitting
Way,
there next to me,
way to prove your
drinking
point there,
beer.
John. Good job.
Damn it. Every night except for meetup night, I'm feeding my kid at that time.
Yeah, no,
You know
I think
what?
that
I
it
think I
it has
think
unique challenges. We process massive amounts of video data. We use a website called encoding.com to process our video files so that we generate one file, send it off to them, and they send us a terabyte back of all of the different video formats that are required for everything that we do. Um, we're producing VR stuff now, and VR requires all sorts of different things, and sometimes you see stuff that makes you laugh, and sometimes you see stuff that you just sort of go, ugh, all right, this again. But it's not a whole lot different than development in a normal system. Yeah? You okay? Uh,
So you moved that card while we were on our
Thomas,
way to the meetup last night.
Thomas sometimes sees things and makes him think, "Man, I miss my cousin."
Oh my.
Cut it
let's,
out.
let's silence for marking that so Eric can cut that.
So Eric, I know last week you were in Arizona, but you were working with
I'm not done with
I
Thomas.
I am. So you were working on you were using a new JavaScript framework that
I was,
that
yeah.
we've kind of been talking about, but you've kind of fallen in love with it, and I wanted to know a little bit more about your thoughts on it.
I don't know if I'm in love yet. We're definitely doing some heavy petting. So I think I'm.
Is that going right back to the adult industry?
Yeah, VueJS. Very, very excited about my progress with Vue. I find myself, so I was working on a single page application and decided to use Vue because there's just been so much hype behind it in the Laravel communities. And it's lived up to that hype. I mean, it's been a super simple Java framework to implement, get things done with. It makes some of the tasks that aren't exactly difficult to do in other JavaScript frameworks, but it just makes it a lot simpler to do with Vue.js. So I kind of had gotten to a point where we got a proof of concept done with the single page application, and I'm now finding myself continuing to dig deeper and deeper into the Vue.js APIs and looking at what else I can do with it. So yes, I'm enjoying it.
What can you do with it?
I mean the biggest thing that, and we mentioned it last week as well, is the bindings. The different ways to bind to parts of your application are just fantastic. And I mean, there's just so much to go. I can't even. Oh, hello.
I can hear you. You're
Yeah.
still there.
Yellow.
Hold on.
New battery time.
No, it's green.
Hodor?
I can hear you guys. You guys are just. Are you there?
Yep.
Yep.
All right, that's better. All right, sorry about that.
Nailed
You
it.
guys, yeah, it was real weird. You guys, like, I could barely hear you in one ear. Like, I think this might have come out or something.
Hmm.
So the bindings are great. I mean, it's a fun framework to work with. I'm looking forward to just leveraging it moving forward and tackling challenges that typically I would have skirted past implementing JavaScript around because I didn't want to have to try to figure out how to do it in JavaScript. Vue just has a lot of components that it brings to the table that makes it a lot easier.
So we've had this topic on our list for a while to talk about, and now that you've done a spa app, what are your thoughts? Should we write spa applications? How big do you think they should be?
Right. So for the spa app, it was fun doing. I could see on a very limited use case needing a spa app as a web application, where maybe it's only a couple pages, but once it gets past a couple of pages, and again, it's difficult to say because once you start doing it in Vue.js, the fact that it's a spa application almost becomes transparent because all your pages become components. You have this Vue router that you use to route to them. So even though it's a single page app, you don't realize it as a developer. But even with all that said, it doesn't bring enough benefit to the table to develop single page applications. I mean, it was fun doing it, and I can see, like I said, maybe for a marketing site, a 1 or 2 page application using it as a spa app, but a full-fledged application, there's just no benefit to it unless.
But what about mobile? I mean, what if you want to bring it into a mobile app?
Yeah, unless you're trying to make the application mobile friendly. That would be the only exception to that. And that was our goal with the single page application we were creating. We were intentionally trying to create an application that was a good experience on mobile devices. If that's your goal, then yeah, a SPA's way to go. Vue.js is definitely, like I said, makes it drop dead simple to do. Once you start to understand how the routing works and how components work, the fact that it's a single page application again just becomes a second thought. You don't even have to worry about it because you got to remember I'm working in Laravel here, so the majority of the page is actually being rendered by a blade template, and then I have a binding within that blade template for my Vue.js application, and so the whole page out of the whole page, I'm only rendering a small piece of it, a small part of the body. So it's real nice to do. If you're shooting for mobile applications, it's definitely worth doing. But I don't think it brings enough to the table to kind of continue to do moving forward for your regular web app.
Now I know Thomas put this card on our list. What are your thoughts? See, I'll call you out. No problem.
My thoughts are: when did I put all these cards on the list? No. The short answer is no.
I can answer that. February 14th. You did it on Valentine's Day this year.
I put it on the next show section of the list?
No. You added it to the list.
Oh.
It kind of fell into the Vue.js, so I moved it.
Yeah, the short answer is no, you should not write a spa app.
Oh, why is that?
As much as I love Vue.js and all that, and as nice as certain single-page functionality can be, an entire app running as a single-page app is incredibly frustrating to debug. It is frustrating for desktop users because your back and forward buttons do not function correctly without a significant amount of work. And handling CSRF is a pain unless you're using specific framework-specific stuff. It's just I've used good SPA applications, but good SPA applications are very difficult to write. They add a lot of time to the process. Bad
And
SPA
I think,
applications take the
I,
same amount of time to write, but they're bad.
yeah, I think that's where Vue.js starts to shine. Because, like I said, once you get your I mean, the debugging is not that big of an issue. There's tools for debugging JavaScript, and there's actually tools specific for Vue.js that you can add to your Chrome inspector. Uh, the 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 browser button issue you reference is a valid one. And I think Vue actually handles that for you. I would have to test it again, but I thought I tested that, and I think Vue is actually handling that. But I'm not positive on that. I would need to test it. Uh, but yeah, a lot of those arguments don't really hold a lot of water with the Vue.js framework because again, it just really makes it pretty simplistic to do. The only thing I'm not clear on, and because you're obviously not loading all the pages at the same time, I'm not even really sure how much of a performance hit you take. Right? Probably not much, if any at all.
Sure. Um, and one of the issues with that is that the Vue.js framework uh, didn't get a stable release until March 26th, which would be a month after I wrote "Do not use SPA apps."
Very true. Good point. Yeah.
So,
I,
so
so
yeah,
I, I'm not jumping on the spa app bandwagon, but I am feeling a lot more comfortable doing them. Um, but and it's probably still me thinking in traditional web development. Uh, I'm not there. I'm not going to commit to thinking spa apps or a spa is the answer for everything out there. But I'm definitely more. I would be more inclined to do them for smaller applications.
It's more fun to learn about new libraries that are out there and just get familiar with things that are available to us.
Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely fun to learn the new stuff that's out, and it's new for a reason. It's got some value. Uh, I just at the time didn't like SPA apps at all.
Yeah, they have their place, but
Yeah, and
here,
like you said, mobile stuff is definitely the place where SPA apps work the best.
true.
Yeah. Agree.
So I was trying to research topics for tonight's show, and I found something that strikes a nerve with me personally, and I want your opinion on it. Protected versus private versus final.
Oh God.
Okay.
Not oh God. I just want to know your point.
You
Your
actually
thoughts.
you left out public, which
On purpose. I mean, public is obvious, but
well, public is the least obvious though because that's the one you don't have to actually say.
okay. But in the context of writing objects, public is separate. Final is, I want to say newer because I don't really use it.
I say I've
I
never
have a
used
protected
Final.
I have a protected versus private issue,
Hmm.
and I think private is overused personally. But I want to know your thoughts.
Uh, a lot of these best practices apply most finely to code that's going to be used by other developers. So things like protected versus private versus final. Uh, if you're writing a library, then that you're going to publish that other people are going to use, you need to know the differences
Hmm.
because you're going to be held accountable either financially if you're selling something or emotionally if you read the comment section for doing something the wrong way. So if your code is going to break because some variable that shouldn't be overwritten gets overwritten, then you're going to get yelled at by somebody calling you an amateur and starting a flame war. Um, and it also has a lot to do with IDE helpers. So properly scoping your variables and methods helps the IDE tell anyone implementing it, or even you using it later on, what stuff is available and should be available versus what stuff is internal, should not be used outside of the library being written. This comes up a lot in service providers. If I'm running a service provider, I need to make sure certain things don't ever get changed versus get changed if it gets
yeah, but again,
cloned.
the question is between protected and private. So even if you're writing a package, I mean, to me, the biggest difference between protected and private is, one the variables are still available to you if you're extending the class. I think that's protected, right? So if you have a protected function, and you have, or if you have protected variables and things like that, and protected functions within a class, and you extend that class, then that stuff is still available to the class that extended it. But private, that's not the case. And you keep referring to if you're writing a package or something like that, but usually people aren't extending classes from packages you wrote. They're leveraging whatever functionality that package has.
No, absolutely not. No, I extend stuff all the time. Let's say you've got a router package that you need to add support for subdomains to, or if you've got a mail package that you need to add support for SSL to.
That's valid. Yep. Yeah, I get you.
You're not always going to have a complete polished package that does everything you want it to do. Or, in larger projects, you have packages that were developed by other members of the team internally, and you don't have permission to modify their package, but you do have the ability to extend it.
So from a closed source internal business use case scenario, which is, I think, kind of one of the things you referred to there, isn't that detrimental to development if you do make something protected? If you do make something private, aren't you potentially opening yourself to having to refactor a lot more code in the event that you ever do need to change something within that method?
Well, yeah, there is the accountability issue as well. It is a balance in that case. You have to decide: am I going to get blamed for someone else breaking this, or am I going to have to come and change it later on to make sure that it's still working? Which one do you want to deal with?
My issue is more within a team I'm on, people don't understand the difference between protected and private, and all they know is public and private. So they often make classes private, not knowing why they're doing it. So
Sure.
when I'm talking to newer developers and I'm looking at their code, I don't pick apart their code so much as ask, why did you do this?
Yeah,
I want to know from their perspective what they're doing, if they know why they're doing it. So in the case of protected versus private, why did you choose private over protected? And normally they don't know. They're like, I didn't know there was a difference. And there's been a number of times where I've wanted to go and extend code that I couldn't because somebody made it private without knowing why. And there was nothing private about it. I should have been able to extend it and build upon their objects, but couldn't.
So it sounds like the problem really is that you need to screen your developers better.
Yeah, there's definitely that piece, but it's a frustrating thing from my end knowing the difference.
It's a frustrating thing to have it done the wrong way, but it's a necessary feature of a complete software language.
No, I agree, and that's just something I want to get across, is knowing the difference on what those things mean.
So then why don't you? Because I don't use final ever.
That was going to be my question. So what's the difference between final and private?
Yeah. So why don't you give us the lesson that you believe needs to be taught?
I don't have a good use of final.
That sounded pretty aggressive there, Tom.
It did.
What does it do?
So,
do you even know the answer?
I do not know the answer.
Damn
the
it.
article I am reading to which I posted this to our discussion group or our discussion list, he is going the other way of making everything final until he finds out why not to. And
That's an interesting approach.
Yeah,
so
that's not sure that I agree on that one.
no.
And I'm still not sure I understand the difference between private and final.
So with private, you can extend a class, you can't overwrite methods within it. I may not have said that right. With private, you can extend. So I can extend your class and I can add methods. With a final class, I cannot even add methods to it. I can't extend it at all.
You can't extend. So the final actually gets applied to the class, and
Right.
not
I mean, it's both. It gets both the class or the method.
Well, that is interesting if you think about it from that perspective. So it sounds like the author of that article, I mean, I don't know, depending on his development environment, he's creating classes that he thinks fulfills a need, and he essentially is saying, okay, somebody explain to me why my class doesn't fulfill your need and you feel like you need to extend it, because if you need to extend it, there's probably enough of a use case where I can add it to the actual class.
That's fair. I mean, that's a good thought process. But dealing with people on my own team where they're creating a class and we don't use final, but they use protected, and it gets very frustrating when, wait, I just want to be able to do something on top of what you've done.
Right.
I want to be able to call the parent class, do whatever you're supposed to do, and I want to do something after, or I want to do something beforehand, and then
yeah. I totally get that, and I side more with you, but the more I sit here and think about it, and again, prefixing that with, I completely agree with you, John, on it. It seems to be more detrimental, but thinking from a very large organization, like talking enterprise level development, where you have contractors coming in, touching code bases, leaving, big development teams, I can see a scenario where somebody has extended a class several times now, or multiple people have extended a class several times just to create the same functionality. And you have this scenario where you have, duplicate code doing basically the same thing, and then somebody comes in and says, well, wait a minute, I've got six classes here that all extend this one class, and they all seem to be doing the same thing. Why did we do that? As opposed to bubbling, that wouldn't even be bubbling up, but pulling it into the original class. So by making it final, then that use case, I mean, that seems pretty weak, but because eventually, if you decide, there's a use case not to make this method final anymore, then you've opened up the floodgates at that point.
Right. And just to clarify, making a class final, you can't extend the class at all. Making a method final, you can extend the class and add more methods. You cannot override that specific method.
So take for example the Symfony request object. So its functionality is to read directly from the session of PHP and to cover some sort of gotchas that are bad in PHP session handling. So the methods that fetch that data should be final, because you don't want anyone to extend your class. You don't want anyone to extend the request class and start changing the core of where it gets the data from, because that compromises the integrity of the rest of what it is doing.
Yes and no. I mean, I could foresee having other gotchas that I wanna override. In my personal app, I may want to do something that Symfony hasn't thought about.
Well, and you're free to edit the source for Symfony or fork it yourself. But
I want to extend it.
once you forked it and made that change, then you have let the Symfony group off the hook
See,
for any problems you cause.
I
Uh,
see. I in that instance, I disagree.
I agree. I agree.
S-
I
As
agree with
as
you,
a
John. Disagree.
right as a framework, you're providing me a structure. I want to
But
use
it
your
isn't about
structure. No,
it being used as a framework. It's about it being used as a library. So this is the same as if
Even
yeah,
more so. I mean, if
yeah.
you're saying it's a library, even more so. It's
Right.
to John's
Uh,
point.
right. I'm using your library to do 99% of what you think is correct, but for my specific app, I should be able to override it and do what I want.
well, consider it the same as a contract, where you're using this library under the pretense that this is how it was intended to be used by the developer.
It
If you want to
doesn't,
change it, you're
and,
free to do so.
but now with Final, you're not. With Final, you can't change it.
No, with Final, you can still get the source code for that library, edit the source code so
But I
that
don't want
it's
to do
not
that. That's
final.
stupid. I should not have
Right,
to. I should not have
but
to edit source code to make
but
changes.
they don't want you
Then,
to.
then they're idiots. I'm not using Symfony anymore.
Well, this is the thing, is that they don't. It's not you in this case. It's Laravel. So Laravel extends the Symfony request object into the Laravel request object.
I think you're getting off point going with publicly accessible libraries. They don't make things final unless there's a very, very good reason. They don't make things protected unless there's a very, very good reason. And that's my point with newer developers. Knowing the difference between those three keywords, making things 99% of the time, you're going to make it protected. Very rarely will you make it private, and even more rarely will you make it final. But you need to know what those are doing and what they mean.
Sure, but I can tell you that my vendor directory right now, I grepped it, and my vendor directory has hundreds of uses of final class, final function.
You're doing it wrong.
It's my vendor directory. I'm not doing nothing.
You're not reading your Slack, that's for sure.
That's true too. I'm doing a podcast.
Yes, I'm trying to help you because we're live streaming a podcast, and we have 0 viewers. But this will be forever recorded, and that stuff on your stash is always going to be there. Thank you! Thank you. Appreciate that.
Well, the live streaming was your idea.
The funny thing is, I read that and I was thinking "get stash," not mustache. So to bring people up to speed, he wrote "clean your stash," and I'm like, "What are you talking about?"
No, it took me a second too, because this is a fucking beard.
We're such geeks. You can't help it.
Oh, that was good. Oh, that's funny.
Well, I can tell you, there's in my current vendor directory, there are 96 uses of final class and
so
9 uses of final function.
So in a library, I could somewhat foresee that, but even I still hate that the library thinks that they know exactly how their product is going to be used. If they're
To be clear here, the library I'm referencing specifically is PHP spec. So
I don't use that enough to know for sure if I'd want to extend any of those specific classes.
well, but you can't. It's the spec for PHP.
Okay. Again, I don't use it, so I don't know.
I mean, that's just an example. There is that all of these classes that use final are doing something with core PHP functionality, something that if you changed it would break the system because
Right.
PHP doesn't do this.
Right. So I'm not arguing that there's not cases for final or for private. I'm arguing that it is overused and that especially newer developers don't know the difference between the three.
Sure.
And
I
even
agree, and that is an issue.
So that's the only reason I brought that up is I've I've seen code recently from developers. They make things private. You ask them why they made it private. It's because they didn't know the difference between protected and private, and that's my frustration. It's I wanted to use your object to do something a little bit differently or add functionality to it, but you're not allowing me. Why? Well, I
Yeah,
didn't.
I think the argument is that if you're developing something and you think you should use protected, or you think you should use private, you should probably use protected.
Right, right.
Um,
And that's what I tell more junior level developers all the time. There's very few cases where you should use private, and you have to know why you're using it if you do. If you don't know why, just make it protected. You're not really going to hurt anything. And then when you make it private, know why you're doing it.
Hey, John, do you have a link to that article? It's not in the card.
I will put a link.
I think we should make this podcast private.
I think it already is private. We got like half a listener.
Yeah, our numbers are going down.
I'm not even paying attention anymore.
But see, that just makes each listener more special now.
I think we need to start sending a thank you card out to each of our listeners. Handwritten.
Right, I added
That's
a
what
link to the
Father's
card.
Day and Mother's Day are. Father's Day is the day when you send a letter thanking your father for listening to your podcast.
And there's the music letting us know that the show's over.
Well, this has been another fun.
I don't hear it.
We actually talked about a lot of really cool stuff today. I think.
We did for such a slow week. Normally we have so many more cards in our Trello list, and I think this morning we had like one, which was talk about the meetup.
It's after midnight right now, and I am tired.
I am spent.
So this has been
raring to go.
This has been another great episode of PHPUgly. I'm John Congdon. Bye. All right, I'm John Congdon. I'm out. Hey, I'm out. I'm John Congdon. Hey, we're done here. I'm out.
I think he's
Can
done.
we finish this already, please? You guys aren't helping me at all.
Doesn't Eric go next?
No.
I'm Eric Van Johnson.
Who are you?
I did now. Anytime, Thomas.
I'm a little teapot.
Short and stout. Here's my handle.
I'm Tom Rideout.
No, I'm a little teapot's the one going in there. You're done.
That's fine by me.
I've become an editing wizard of late, so.
You've done some fantastic edits lately.
I did the last podcast. Our quality is inversely proportional to the number of listeners we have.
Inversely proportional, yeah.
Unfortunate. Yeah. As you've gotten better at editing, our listeners have gone down.
Yeah.
Well, that and naming an episode Coder Boner might have been a problem, because we've got 40 listeners to episode 14 and 26 for Coder Boner.
Coder Boner only gave us 26? I'm naming this one Porn Life.
Alright, I really got a friggin' pee, so I'm stopping my recording now.
Alright, stop recording.
Just name this one Literal Boner.
Alright, I'll be back.
Alright. I don't know if we'll be here, but okay. Damn, we do only have... Man, that was our lowest rated freaking show. That's horrible. I'm going to stop broadcasting so people don't know that.